Hello, welcome to the basement at the Bureau. Right now we'll do a nice yoga routine to help us find balance in our pelvis. We'll start lying supine and take a couple sacral rocks here, arcing your low back and anterior tilt and posteriorly tilting to follow. Inhale anterior, exhale posterior. Just feel the back of your pelvis, feel the back of the feet. And then we'll continue with some lateral movement here. Sacral rocks laterally, one side then the other. And then into a nice pelvic clock, a nice circular motion, massaging your low back sacrum, using your feet for leverage. Reverse your circles. Keep taking deep, full breaths here into the back side ribs. Chest is open, collarbones are wide. And then find center here for a moment, and then find more of a posterior tilt. Place your hands at your two hip points. Low back is anchored on the floor, and feel that iliacus muscle. So when you posteriorly tilt, like I'm showing here, that iliacus muscle that connects your psoas, lower and upper parts of your body, gets a little bit more tight, and it pushes up. So I'm using my two fingers to palpate that muscle and push it down as I take deep belly breaths here. At least 5 rounds of breath. Inhale into my low belly pelvis, and then exhale, I palpate those iliacus muscles right to the inside of my hip bones, and really try to connect and release that muscle, that tight muscle in my groins. Using my feet for leverage. It's hard work to keep that low back anchored without overly tucking, so the tailbone still stays grounded. And then go ahead, let's keep our anchor there with our low back. Hug the right knee into the chest, hips stay level, and descend that left leg down and forward to a nice extension. And lower and lifting that left leg. Again, hips are level, right knee's hugged in. And sense that left leg connecting into the back of the rib cage without arcing our spine. And then you can go lateral here. Again, hips stay still and quiet as the left leg moves lateral in the hip, out and in. A few times. Keep the collarbones wide. And then you can pulse that leg on a lateral reach here, up and down gently. Just create more width in your pelvis, within that hip socket. There you go, right leg, right pelvis supported. Bring that left leg back in, descend it down, and just relax that left leg as you pull the right knee up a little bit more, releasing a little bit more on that left side. Recenter yourself, maybe a couple pelvic tilts, and let's do side 2. We're going to hug that left knee into our chest. Keep the pelvis level, hips quiet. Right leg up and then descend it down. Find that connection to the back of the scapula, to the back of the right ribs, to the back of the right sacrum pelvis, to the right ankle. And you lower and lift the leg without losing your connection. So you feel that plumb line of your right ankle to the right pelvis, or right rib cage without overly arcing. And then you can take your lateral movement here out to the side and back in. Feeling that within your pelvis hip. And then add a little pulse up and down. There you go. Up and down. And then hug that left knee up a little bit more. Right leg reaches, lengthens, and then bend both knees into the back end. Let's come back to tabletop. Rock and roll our spine a few times up and down. Massaging low, middle, upper spine. Chin to chest, gaze at stomach, elbows wide, collarbones wide. Just connecting our back body a little bit more. Then fold over, come back onto all fours, hands under shoulders, knees under hips. Take a couple cat-cows here, open your chest, and then round our back. Arc and lengthen, and then round. So we're taking that pelvic tilt now into the whole spine. Find our anterior as we open into cow, posteriorly as we round into cat. And now take that lateral movement in our cat-cow. Round to the left, arc to the right. Keep leveraging down through your forelimbs in reverse. Round to the right now, arc sway to the left. Find that width in your back body, leveraging through hands and shins. Find center, and then let's take our right leg forward into a lunge position. Hands inside your right leg, and keeping your hips as level as possible, we'll do our cat-cow here. This sense of hugging your midline. Hips are level. Knees are bent 90 degrees. Using both legs for leverage. Even our hands for leverage, pressing down, especially as we round into our cat. And then take a few circles in one direction. Feel the movement of the leg bones massage into the back of your pelvis. So good for our hips. And consequently our spine. And then stretch that back leg up, sneak that right leg back, find a nice downward facing dog, piking the hips up and back. Take a few breaths here in down dog, maybe bend the knees, inhale, exhale, hips up and back, heels reach down. Keep your reaches, hands and feet, and then round your spine, come forward to your plank pose. Rocking forward and back in your plank. That's it. Bend your knees, lower the chest through shoulders, take a moment, and then pike it up and back to dog. Round, come forward, plank pose, hop of a push-up, bending the knees, lower, soften your heart, cow. One more time, pike it up and back, down dog, open low back, mid back, upper back, plank, bend your knees, and soften your chest. Good. And then pressing through hands, let's go ahead, sneak your left leg forward, find your lunge position, rock it forward and back a few times. And then with both legs participating, scissors through the midline, hands inside the front left leg, round your spine and open your chest. Cat and cow and cat and cow. Once more. And then circle one direction. Open your hips, right leg and left leg. Just sense that femur, how it manipulates, moves in your pelvis. Again, chest staying open. Then curl the right toes under, lift the right knee, sneak that left leg to plank, and then pike it up and back, down dog. Just pedal out through your legs, one knee bending at a time. Keep those toes pushing, hips level. Then bend and stretch. Take a moment, stretch your dog nice and long, nice and broad. Lowering down to left forearm, reaching right arm forward, and float the right leg up. Find connection, right hand to armpit, through waist, through right thigh, up through right toes. Get long bending knee, and then opening your hip a little bit more, stacking right hip on top of left. Then maybe bending both knees a little, and reaching both legs. Left heel down, right leg up. Still connecting right hand to right upper inner thigh, mound to toe. Full reach. Re-square hips, shoulders. Sneak that right leg down. Pedal out through your feet, and we'll do side two. Right forearm down, left arm reaches. Put the left leg up, bending right knee, inhale. Then exhale, stack hips. And reach. And bend, inhale, and reach from your seat powerhouse, like you're stretching your legs equally into a split variation. Right forearm is anchor, left arm's reaching, get longer. Then re-square everything, come back to your down dog, and float the left leg back down. Round, come forward, plank, Good. Rock it forward, rock it back. Rock it forward, rock it back. Nice and easy. Bend your knees. Find your neutral spine, and then let's take your right leg back up into your lunge. This time sneak that left leg back a little bit more, nudge the knee back so you're not on the patella, but you're slightly in front of it. Lower down, press away a few times. Right hand touches back left inner thigh, rotate up, and then lower left hand and sweep your right arm over ear. So you stay in this nice rotation here. Sense your right arm coming out of the left upper inner thigh as you reach overhead on a diagonal line. Inhale, big wide arms. Exhale, reaching over. Pause for a moment, reach long from the thigh through the pelvis up through your top right armpit, chest, fingertips reaching, and then rotate to the floor. Sneak that right leg forward a little bit more for a runner's stretch. Push your right heel bone down and back. Do a couple cat-cow here with your spine, holding your pelvis level and still. Scissoring those inner thighs. Left leg is still very supporting you right here. Very useful. Maybe hold on to the outer right foot with your left hand. And forward fold over your right thigh. Make sure that low waist ribs are lifting up your right thigh so you're not collapsing into your thigh. Inhale, open your chest, re-square everything, and let's plant your hands. Sink that right leg to plank. Pike it up, down dog, pedal out those feet. And round, come forward, plank. Rock it back, rock it forward, then lower the knees, find your cow. And side two. Good, lift yourself up. Rock it forward and back a little bit. Use that front left heel for support as you rotate to your left. And sweep the left arm over, bicep to ear. Right arm up and back. Right arm down and hinging forward. Left arm reaching over. Feel the reach from the inner thigh up through right fingertips. And then the right hand down. And feel the reach of the left arm out of that right upper inner thigh. Through that center line. Using both feet for leverage here, and then drive the pelvis back as you continue to reach forward. And then rotate to the floor. Draw the pelvis back. Find your runner's stretch as you sneak that left leg maybe a bit more forward to give you more space. Dig that left heel bone down and back. Make sure your left toes, kneecap point up to the ceiling. Hips square, facing forward. And then try to round your spine into your cat. And unfurl the spine into your cow, and then walk your hands to the outer left foot, holding on to the outer left foot, maybe with the right hand, and round up and over your shin bone, chin to chest, nose to navel, lift your waistline, scissoring those inner thighs. Then inhale, look up, come back, center. Sink that left leg back and pike your hips up and back, dog, pedal out those feet. Roll forward. And then let's take that right leg forward into an interesting pigeon pose. So I'm lining my right shin bone parallel to the front edge of my mat. I'm curling my right toes under, which you can't see. My left toes are curled under too. And I'm using my right shin bone as a break so my left knee doesn't come forward to my right knee. And then drawing my fingers to touch on top of my head and bending my elbows as I inhale and finding an extension as I exhale, reaching hands right out of the plumb line of my pelvic floor, rooting down through my two shins, hugging that center line. I'm just taking a couple of deep breaths here to release and lengthen both sides of my. Keep that extension up as you root down through your lower body. And bending elbows, hinge at the hips, plant your hands, sink that left leg back, and pike it back up to down dog. Pedal out those feet. Come back forward. Plank. And then sink that left leg forward to a pigeon variation. Left shin now parallel to the front edge of your mat. Left toes curled under. Ankles stacked on top of toes. Using that ankle shin as a break for your right thigh. Right toes curled under. Find your center here in your pelvis. Got to work the flesh of the buttocks under you without necessarily overly tucking. Hip points pull up. Lift your pelvic bowl up to the center of ribs, center of head. And then take a moment, bend elbows a couple times. And an inhale, stretch up on an exhale. Now you find a couple breaths here in this full extension, trying to lift front, back, and your two sides up out of your pelvis. Bend elbows, hinge at hips, sneak that right leg back, and sneak left leg to follow into a nice down dog. Good. Settle in your dog. And walk your hands back to your feet, standing forward, fold end of your mat. Take a moment, bend and stretch your knees a couple times. An option to wrap your hands behind your shins and push out into your arms with your legs to bring more awareness, strength in the outer thighs, inner thighs. Release. Find a seat and chair pose. Inhale. Stretch up. Open your chest and then exhale. Press 2, standing. Nice lifted posture. Okay, let's go ahead and continue with a yoga block. If you don't have one, grab a stack of books, strong, sturdy books. We'll do one little more exercise here to release our psoas, to find more balance between our pelvis, two sides. So standing on the block with our right leg, take a moment, dip that left hip and lift it back up. Make sure your hips are level, and as you stand on your block with the right leg, allow the left leg to freely sway and swing forward and back. Remember, we did this at the beginning of practice on the floor, but our right knee was bent instead of straight. Now you can work a lateral motion out to the side of the hip and back in. Stay out and maybe do a few circles. Again, feel the leg release out of the hip. And a gentle lift up so you keep the hips level. So connecting foot all the way up to the waistline, ribs. And then for the fun of it, let's take a nice tree pose. Maybe draw the foot to the inner right thigh, hands to heart. And take a couple breaths here. Again, pressing thigh to foot, foot to thigh. Chest is open. Hip points are lifted. Find a nice lifted posture standing on your right leg. And then maybe pull the knee up and release side 2. Take a couple pelvic clocks in the air. Release any tension. And then standing on the block with your left foot, pull up that left standing knee. And then dip down, lift up a few times. Careful not to overlift that hip. And let that leg swing. Find your connections from the left rib cage through the center of your pelvis, down the inner knee. Mount a big toe, and then take that outer lateral motion here. Hips again still and quiet, level. Stabilizing with your standing left leg now. Take a couple circles, build those connections in your body. And then pull the knee up, open your chest. And take a nice tree pose, foot to thigh, hands to heart. Couple breaths here in tree pose. Hip points lifted, low belly cinching in and up. Grounded, standing so strong in your left leg. Deep breaths. Feel so beautiful here in your tree. Lower that left leg down, step off, remove that block. Massage your hips, low back with your pelvic circles. Nice work. Go ahead and remove that block. And now let's go ahead and stand at the front of our mat. We'll do a few more traditional standing yoga postures here before closing our practice with a nice seated posture. Forward fold. Sneak that right leg back. Spin that heel bone down when you have a chance. Align heel to heel alignment. Draw the right thigh back. Firm that left buttock under you as you stack right hip on top of left hip, right shoulder on top of left shoulder, and sweep that right arm over your ear. Parsvakonasana. Similar to what we've been doing with our psoas releases here, building connection from inner right ankle through pelvis, fingertips. Re-square hips, shoulders, plank, and let's go side 2. Sneak right heel up into your runner's lunge. Take a moment, integrate your legs into your pelvis. Find your Parsvakonasana side stretch here. Connect ankle to upper inner thigh through top left armpit, fingertips. Breathe into that connection and find a little bit more extension with each exhalation as you reach through the bones of your body. Re-square your hips, shoulders, find your plank, and then pike your pelvis up and back, downward facing dog. Roll to plank, chaturanga. Stretch your thighs back, hands by shoulders, and inhale, open your chest, cobra, bhujangasana. Exhale, lengthen to go down, curl chin toes, press to plank, and then pike it back up, down dog. Pedal out those feet, stretch back through your feet. And then step forward, Uttanasana, standing forward fold to the front of your mat. We meet there. Bend your knees, find your chair pose, inhale, stay for your exhale, and then press to come back. Tadasana, standing forward, or standing position. Then circle out the hips again. Good practice. Pike the hips back, fold the arms, chair pose. Deep breaths here. And then hinge at the hips, forward fold, exhale, Uttanasana. Inhale, exhale, step back, right leg, bend the heel bone down. Find your Trikonasana. So same practice as before. We firm that left glute under, stack right hip on top of left, and we'll stack hand to hand. Top arm reaching up, bottom arm reaching down, head pulling right out of your pelvic bowl. Good. Deep breaths here. Find a deep crease in your left hip as you press that left foot down and forward. And then go ahead and re-square your body for a second, and then keep your stacking top hip on top of bottom, top shoulder on top of bottom, and take a half moon pose. A little supple bend in your bottom leg, deep crease in your hip. And then re-square your torso and forward fold. Release your head. Side 2, inhale, exhale, step back. Bend that back left heel bone down. Heel to heel alignment. Work that right foot down as you hinge at the right hip, moving to Trikonasana. Again, still building that connection in your lower to upper bodies. Feeling that width across your chest. Create that space, width on the inhale. Streamline that space through your bones on the exhale, finding more extension without losing your connection. Come up into your half moon, keeping your left hip stacking on top of right, left shoulder stacking on top of right. Breathe deep breaths, little supple bend in your right knee, not to lock that knee joint. Then re-square hips and shoulders, standing forward fold, release your head. Shake it out a bit, bend and stretch your legs. And bend the knees, come up, chair pose, inhale there. And then exhale, press to come up. Nice lifted posture. Circle out the hips again. Hinge at the hips, find your seat, chair pose, inhale. Stay for your exhale. One more breath there. And then again, hinge at the hips, forward fold, Uttanasana. Step the right leg back, heel to heel alignment, unfold. Parsvottanasana now. Square off the pelvis, square off your shoulders. Maybe reverse namaste, hand to hand to the back of the scapula, wide chest, collarbone. Feel connection from the right thigh through the pelvis, up through your right heart, chest, collarbone wide. And then hinge at your hips. Come forward with a tall, long spine, pelvis back. So hinge at those hips. Fingers touch down at the floor, at the yoga blocks. And again, forward fold over that left shin bone. Keep breathing deep breaths here. Broaden the outer right hip out to the right. Hip point goes forward and the right outer left hip draws back. Deep hinge in the hips. Inhale, look up, and then maybe come into a nice rotation here. Pravrita Trikonasana. So now we keep drawing our outer left hip back, firm outer left hip in, as we rotate our torso right to left, and our waist rib, stacking left hand above right hand. Deep breaths here. Keep building that connection from the right ankle through your pelvis up into your top left arm. Scissoring those inner thighs, allowing that outer right hip to dip down. And then we square hips, shoulders, sink that right leg forward, inhale, and exhale, sink that left leg back. Again, optimal alignment is heel to heel alignment. If you need a little bit more width, that's fine. You want a good base so your feet can be wider. Reverse namaste. Inhale, open your heart here, find your connection. Hinge at those hips, deep crease in those groins to go forward. Hands lightly touch the ground, release your head. And you're pushing your right foot down and forward as you pull the right stomach up and in, forward folding over your right leg. Remember, try not to collapse. It's easy to do. Inhale, extend your spine, and then find your left hand maybe to the outer foot. Rotating from our left to our right now. Firming that outer right hip back, firming that outer right hip in, allowing that hip point to dip down and forward in your rotation. Pravrita Trikonasana here. Breathe deep breaths. Exhale, extend down through your feet, reach wide through your arms, pull your head out of your pelvis. And then we square everything to the ground, sink that right leg back, down dog. Round your spine forward, plank, chaturanga, and upward facing dog with the hips lifted. Open your chest collarbone, curl the 10 toes, and push it back to downward facing dog. Walk hands again back to feet. Widen your stance, the width of your mat. Deep crease in those groins. Reach the arms forward. And then fingers to the floor for a nice long Uttanasana here. Keep working the sit bones up and back, opening your pelvic floor. And then descend your hips through your legs into Malasana, your deep squat. Keep opening your pelvic floor here, then hands lightly come behind you and have a seat with control. Let's transition to Upavista Konasana here. Take a moment, roll the thighs back and apart, sit bones root down, find a vertical pelvis so hip points are lifted. You're not anteriorly or posteriorly rocking back as I'm showing here. You want to find your plumb line, vertical pelvis, sit bones rooted, hip points lifted. Spread your legs with strength, heel bones down, kneecaps lift straight up. And then we'll rotate left hand forward, right hand back for more leverage as you take a few breaths and rotate left to right, head pulling right out of pelvis. Staying there, maybe hinging at the hips and gently come forward over that right shin bone, holding on to outer right foot with left hand. Right hand can press down right by your right shin for leverage so you can lift your stomach, ribs, in that forward fold. Again, not to collapse. It's an up and over always. Keep your vertical pelvis hinging at those hips. Legs strong and working, right and left. Look forward and then unfold to come up. And we'll take side 2. Take a moment, lengthen your torso. And then right hand comes forward, left hand comes back. So as if you had 2 more legs. Your limbs are pressing down and out from your center as you rotate in your spine right to left and pull your head right out of the center of your pelvis via the heart space. Then hinging at your hips, especially that right hip draws back. Energize that right leg as you forward fold over your left. Maybe holding on to outer left shin with right hand. Use your exhale to round up and over, not collapsing. So try to keep the lift of the belly up off your left thigh, within space in your back body. Couple deep breaths here. Look up. Very good. Come center. And then go ahead, fold the legs in for a Bandha Konasana. Soles of the feet touching. Hold on to the outer portions of your feet with your two hands and just flutter your legs here. A couple deep breaths. Feel your two sit bones. Feel the outer edges of the feet. Those are your points of leverage, and then allow the legs to flutter gently. And now find a little more integration here. Root the seat, root the feet down and back, and extend your spine, head forward out of pelvis on a high long diagonal. Use your elbow points to press the upper thighs down, spread your legs out of your pelvis, and gently release your head. Deep breaths into your back body. Again, it's an active forward fold. Keep feeling your points of leverage. Sit bones, outer feet, they actively press down. Sit bones, outer feet press down and toward one another. Pull the stomach in and up as you articulate up and over. Release the head consciously. Breathe into your back generously. And then unfold. Beautiful. Fold the legs back in. Cross the shins. And we did it. Hands to heart. Namaste, all of you. Have a beautiful day. Take care of yourselves.